We have all sorts of products today. Products that we sell at the Daily Wire, products that, our wonderful advertisers have. But then there are some products that I don't know that I can quite get behind. Tampax. Well, I haven't used Tampax myself. I can't say that I was a regular customer, but Tampax has a very strange advertising campaign. They launched this a couple of weeks ago. Meant to get to it. Fits in right now in the Christmas shopping season. Tampax tweeted out, "You're in their DMs. We're in them. We are not the same." Ugh. What? Did I read that correctly? So obviously it's like a sex joke, about women and about what women use Tampax for. My first reaction was, why are tampons tweeting? Why do tampons have to tweet? Because all brands have to tweet now, and all brands market themselves on this kind of edginess, right? You have to tweet to sell the product, and the way to get attention on social media, as I think we've all seen in the last 24 hours, is to consistently go and say the edgiest things that you possibly can. And this is not a great long-term strategy. The entire culture is incentivizing us to do that ever more and more. But as a long-term strategy, it's not really smart. I talked about this on the Matt Fradd show the other day. Matt Fradd said, "Michael, you're a Catholic, but you're also a conservative talking head. And so does your Catholic obligation to be charitable and not to, constantly go out and detract from everybody, does that conflict with your role as a professional owner of the libs?" And I thought, maybe sometimes, I hope it doesn't, but I'm sure we all misstep sometimes. But I generally try not to, because if you stake your career or your brand or your professional life on just constantly being more and more offensive, more and more shocking, more and more edgy, not only are you probably going to flame out, as happens to basically everyone who attempts this strategy, but it's also going to lead you into saying things that you probably don't really believe, that you probably don't really think are totally true. You'll just be incentivized to do that for shock value, which is not a good way to live, and it will end up depriving you of your integrity and of, in the name of breaking through these strictures and this censorship, you're going to end up saying things that you don't think are true in the first place. Speaking of weird sex stuff, weird sex stuff and dishonesty, headline out of the BBC: "Trans woman jailed for sex with 14-year-old girl." What does that headline actually mean? I'm going to translate that headline from woke, politically correct dishonesty into English. Man jailed for raping child. That's what that really means. But trans woman jailed for sex with 14-year-old girl. What do we call it when 25-year-olds have sex with 14-year-olds? Do we just call that sex? No, we usually call that rape. That would be statutory rape everywhere in the United States or Britain or anywhere in the civilized world. And then what do we call a trans woman in reality? We call that a man. But it shows you the power of language, which is a real hobby horse of mine, but you've got to constantly come back to it, because you think, because you are conscious and you read the news and you know what's up and you get all of your information from different sources, you don't only believe CNN, you think that you can catch the deception. But you can't. None of us can all the time, because so much of the leftist deception is built into the very language that we use. When you use the phrase trans woman, or if you refer to a guy who thinks he's a woman as she, or even if you refer to a guy who thinks that he's a woman with a woman's name, you are, consciously or unconsciously, accepting the premises. A woman has a right to go into the woman's bathroom. She has a right to go into the woman's bathroom. Caitlin has the right to go into the woman's bathroom. When you accept terms like gay marriage, which even people who oppose gay marriage often will use the term gay marriage, you're accepting the premise that gay marriage is just it's a type of marriage. You can have American marriage or an Indian marriage or a gay marriage, but it's not. The whole point of the debate is that gay marriage is a contradiction in terms, and it's completely different. Intrinsically, it cannot be the same thing as marriage. We do this constantly. The undocumented workers, undocumented Americans are just a type of American, except they're not. They're foreign nationals. They are not Americans. Justice-involved youth, that's one of my favorite academic euphemisms for criminal children, criminal minors, or justice-involved person is used to refer to adults. Whatever justice-involved persons are, they are not involved with justice. They're criminals. They're involved with injustice, actually. It's a total deception. So you've got to be aware of, even if you're reading this and you say, wait, something's clearly gone wrong here. It's not you've got to translate it in your head and say it in your head in order to really appreciate this. Trans woman jailed for sex with 14-year-old girl. No. Grown man rapes child. That's what it is. It'll give even you a different and more accurate picture.
Hey there, Mr. Michael. This is Stanley again. Thank you for taking my original question on your pronunciation of words like divisive versus divisive. I was listening to your show, and Ben also brought it up on his show, the Canadian new laws that were going to try to help with assisted suicide. Now, I think the reason the Canadians are actually doing this, as well as other European countries with socialized medicine, is because of their social programs. It's obviously much cheaper to just do away with them than it is to treat them for a fatal illness. You might remember several years ago, I think back in 2018, there was a little boy named Alfie Evans, and he died, and he may have died anyway, but he died because the British government would not allow his parents to seek treatment for him, even outside of the country. Even the Vatican was going to send a jet to help him. Now, I think, honestly, at the core of all of this is Satan. He hates the family, and he does everything he can to circumvent it, from gender confusion to making husbands and wives think that they're a drag on each other, to pornography and all sorts of things. Anyway, that's my perspective. What do you think?
It's a great question. Sometimes people ask questions like that at speaking events that I go to. They'll get up and they'll say, "Hey, Michael," and give a dissertation on their view of the world and say, "What do you think of that?" I say, "I agree. Actually, I agree with that." That's a very good one. And especially on your first point when you say, "Do you think that Canada now is pushing assisted suicide because it will save them money because they've got these sort of socialist programs?" And the answer is, of course, yes. This is one of the great hazards to socialized medicine, to all sorts of socialist programs and giving all of your political power away and upending all sorts of traditions. Because you just get perverse incentives. And conservatives understand that incentives motivate people's behavior. So if the government is going to create an incentive for Granny maybe to leave this planet a little sooner, then you're going to see more of that behavior, okay? And we know that because part of the debate over socialized medicine and Obamacare and all the rest of it was that people spend a huge proportion of the money that they will spend over their whole lives on healthcare in the final 18 months of their life. Right? It's not as though you spend the same amount every year on healthcare. It's that you spend basically nothing on healthcare for most of your life, and then a little bit more as you get older, and then at the very end you spend a ton of money. So if you're some technocrat with a green visor crunching the numbers, and you say, wow, if we want to save, who knows, 50% on our medical expenses in the government, if we just kill Granny 18 months sooner, you're going to get that behavior. It's a huge moral hazard. Make sure you head on over to the member block. We also have fake headlines. I need your help in discerning which headlines are real. So if you are not a member, click the link in that description and join us.